Hello, my beautiful keto family. In this video, I'm going to define and compare the differences between a low-carb and a ketogenic diet. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Talita from Shrinking With Keto. And at the early age of 32, I had a hysterectomy performed, tossing me directly into the menopausal pool, adding an extra 40 pounds to my already morbidly obese existence. Now, throughout my ketogenic journey, I have lost over 190 pounds. I reversed my diabetes type 2 and claimed my life back naturally. Since then, it has become my obsession to help you claim your life back now. Full disclaimer, I am not a nurse, nor a doctor, nor a medical practitioner of any sort. All and every bit of information that I provide you with in my videos is based on my own extensive research and personal experience, which I hope is more than enough to help you. Low-carb diet. What is a low-carb diet anyway? Well, much like the ketogenic diet, a low-carb diet offers some guidelines and is very flexible. The general definition of a low-carb diet is that it reduces the amount of carbohydrates that we eat in a day. Emphasis on the word reduces. According to the American Academy of Family Physicians, a low-carbohydrate diet is a diet that does not include more than 20% carbohydrates in its daily intake. It specifies that people on a low-carb diet eat less, emphasis on less, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, and cereals. The standard American diet proposes a daily intake between 45 and 65% of carbohydrates. So you understand, anything lower than that could be considered a low-carb diet. Some of the most common low-carb diets include the following modifications. If you're a healthy adult, generally active in your everyday life, they would reduce the amount of carbohydrates between 100 and 200 grams a day. Whereas if you would be a morbidly obese individual with, let's say, diabetes type 2 or insulin resistance, you would go as low as 50 to 100 grams of carbs a day. Another significant characteristic of a low-carb diet is that there is an increase in protein in order to balance out the percentages. Since we have lowered the percentage of carbohydrates, it usually is balanced out through the amount of protein eaten in a day. Now, because carbs are still the main source of fuel when you're on a low-carbohydrate diet, they tend to be consumed around the times of day where the individual is more active. Let me interrupt you for a second. Now, if this is the first time you're seeing this pretty face, let's make sure it's not the last. So go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell icon so that YouTube can notify you every time I have a new video out. Let's switch over to the ketogenic diet. Now, the ketogenic diet, in fact, is considered a low-carb diet. But the difference is that there is 3 parameters to the ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is a high-fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate diet. But not just low in any sense. It specifies that your carbohydrates should not be more than 5% of your total intake. Now, in order for it to be a ketogenic diet, all these 3 factors play a role. If you do not have high enough fats in a ketogenic diet, then you will not be in a ketogenic state. If your carbs are not low enough, usually under 20 grams, again, you're not going to be in a ketogenic state. And it is very important to keep the protein moderate, as an excess protein in our body would turn into glucose, something that we do not want on a ketogenic diet. Specifically, the average model used in a ketogenic diet is 70 to 75% fats, 20 to 25% protein, and no more than 5% of carbohydrates. Let's remember that a low-carb diet can have up to 20% carbohydrates in its daily intake, whereas the ketogenic diet can never go over 5%. Contrary to a low-carb diet, on a ketogenic diet, you do not eat less of some foods. There are some foods that are completely off limits. On the keto diet, you do not eat bread, pasta, potato, rice, or cereals at all. As I mentioned earlier, protein is a very important factor in the ketogenic diet. If you eat more protein than you need, it will turn into glucose and potentially throw you out of ketosis. Therefore, there is a model that we tend to follow in the ketogenic life. We will try to go at around 0.8 grams per pound of lean body mass, with people aging over 40 taking it up to a gram. Now, if you want to know more about keto macros, you can go ahead and check my video on it, where I break it down step by step as to how to calculate it for each person individually. The main difference between the ketogenic diet and a low-carb diet, more specifically, the ketogenic diet and any other diet, is that there is a metabolic shift in our body from burning carbs for fuel to burning fat for fuel. Now, our body runs on two types of fuels, glucose and ketones. Our body takes glucose from carbohydrates. It takes the carbohydrates and they become simple sugars in our body, and they're stored as glucose for energy. Now, if you're in ketosis, your body takes fat and it turns it into ketone bodies, and the ketones are what provide you with energy. So when you are on a low-carb diet and your body's fuel source is still carbs, because you have decreased the intake of carbs so much, there are crashes throughout the day. Whereas in a ketogenic diet, the ketones fuel your body 24 hours a day, because it is not only dependent on the fat that you eat, but also on the fat stored in your body. To recap the differences between a low-carb diet and a ketogenic diet. In a low-carb diet, you can eat up to 20% of carbs. In a ketogenic diet, you cannot eat more than 5% of carbs. In a low-carb diet, you eat less bread, pasta, cereals, rice, whereas in the ketogenic diet, you do not eat them at all. On a low-carb diet, you might increase your protein intake, whereas at a ketogenic diet, you need to keep your protein intake moderate, not more than 25% usually, with some very few exceptions in place. Now, the main difference between the low-carb and the ketogenic diet is that the low-carb diet still runs on carbs for fuel, whereas in the ketogenic diet, there is a metabolic shift in your body and your body becomes a fat-burning machine, burning fat for fuel. Now, if you want for free to download the Keto Essentials shopping list, you can find the link in my description, print it out, carry it with you everywhere, just pop it out of your bag and go ahead and look at everything that you can and cannot have on the ketogenic diet. Oh, and one more thing, chin up or the crown slips.